America probably has one of the worst histories on record on the face of the earth because of all the heinous things they've done to the slaves and continue to try to cover it up as if it was not that bad. It was far more horrific than you can even imagine. Only an animal or a devil would do something like this to another human being. You can't be human. You absolutely can't. I understand why people are questioning it now. It should be questioned. 6 startling things about slave farms during slavery that you may not know. The fertility of enslaved women was examined by owners to make sure they were able to birth as many children as possible. Secretly, slave owners would impregnate enslaved women, and when the child was born and grew to an age where he could work on the fields, they would take the very same children, their own blood, and make slaves out of them. As pointed out in the National Humanities Center Resource Toolbox on slaveholders' sexual abuse of slaves. Because they're not human. Okay, and the next fact. It was common for the slave to be subordinate sexually to the master, even men with enslaved males. It was part of the enslaved man's function as animated tool and instrument of pleasure. Ugh, okay. Okay. You know, it always disturbs me when I look at these old pictures and you see some of these kids are just toddlers. And they got them out there picking cotton. Oh, man. Oh, Okay. When enslaved males turned 15 years old and younger, in some cases, they had their first inspection. Boys who were underdeveloped had their testicles castrated and sent to the market or used on the farm. Each enslaved male was expected to get 12 females pregnant a year. The men were used for breeding for 5 years. One enslaved man named Bert produced more than 200 offspring, according to the slave narrative. And you want to hear something? When I went back and traced my family tree, I found a breeder in my family that they said it was estimated that he had 300 children. History I wish I could forget. Okay. All right. To combat the high rate of death among the enslaved, plantation owners demanded females start having children at 13. By 20, the enslaved women would be expected to have 4 or 5 children. As the inducement, plantation owners promised freedom for enslaved females once she bore 15 children, according to The Slavery in the United States by John Simkin. If the enslaved woman was considered pretty, she would be bought by plantation owner and given special treatment in the house, but often subjected to horrifying cruelty by the master's wife, including the beheading of a child because he was the product of an enslaved master affair. Not only that, the house slave was the one that was raped the most. So, They were raped a lot more often than the field slaves were. Okay, often the plantation owner would entertain his friends by forcing the enslaved blacks to have orgies, multiple pairings having sex in front of them. And the white men often would participate in the debauchery. That's disgusting. Now, you notice they said the blacks because this would have been men or women. It didn't necessarily have to be women involved in these orgies. I just want to point that out. It's disgusting.
And children.
Okay. Enslaved women were forced to have sex with their owners, but their masters considered this a favor. White men often claimed they were doing black women a favor by saving them from having sex with black men who were considered to be animalistic and brutal. Give me the animalistic and brutal black man.
Fact.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God. My God. Oh, my stomach is turning reading that stuff. But breeding farms were real popular in the U.S., especially Virginia had the biggest breeding farms in the country, followed by Maryland. But there were several states that had breeding farms in this country. It's disgusting. You know, it just goes to show you what lengths these devils would go to just to make a profit. You know, it was just like animals having children, you know, and just like you sell a puppy, they would sell the offspring. You know, it's sick. You know, you don't realize the black family is so divided, and it's because of all the bad treatment we got. And we never got used to being around family until after slavery, when, you know, we managed to stay together without everybody being separated. You know, but you're talking a few hundred years of being separated over and over and over. So we didn't really get to be a family unit for a long time in this country. So you can still see a lot of the effects of this in the black community, especially when you see people not staying together, or you'll see guys impregnating a bunch of girls, and they don't realize that mess comes from slavery. That's slave behavior. You know, you may look at it as some kind of badge of honor. It really isn't at all. You're just duplicating what the slaves did in the breeding farms centuries before now.
Called a buck.
Just give it some thought before you go out there and do certain things. I mean, that stuff came from slavery. Please leave your comments and subscribe. And if
all praises be to the Most High.